Hey, it's Matt from Custom Car Grills with a mesh install for the 2024 and newer Mustang GT side grills. In this video, we're going to cut up a stock pair of these grills and make the ones that are shown here. It all starts with removing them from the bumper, and once you have these in hand, this looks like a simple mod, but there's quite a bit to these little pieces. Let's flip one of these face down and look at what's going on. There are some areas that we must keep open so that the grill will clip back into the bumper tabs, and some spots that we can cover up with mesh. The initial cuts will be getting rid of some of the excess plastic on the back. To trim these back, I'll grab my Dremel and equip it with their number 543 cutting and shaping wheel. Again, for right now I'm just trimming off the excess depth on the back of the grill. Be sure not to cut any of the bumper tabs, as those will be needed for reinstallation. The reason we're trimming this plastic off is so that we can get a better angle of approach for cutting out the main mesh section and later getting the mesh flush. And speaking of cutting out the stock mesh, let's go ahead and tackle that. These are just some simple straight cuts right across the diamond pattern while keeping about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Just cut each connector with the Dremel, and once all the cuts are made, then remove the center and throw it away. Here's how mine looks with the mesh now gone. It's a good start, but we still have a lot of work to do. And on a closer look, we can see quite a bit of unevenness on the back edge. Using the top of the Dremel wheel, I can shave down these areas to be flat and consistent. Getting a seamless look of the mesh to the grill frame will highly depend on this step, so be sure to take some extra time to give this the attention to detail that it deserves. There is one bumper tab that has a white retainer pin. This tab will need to be removed so that we have a spot to bond the mesh to the frame in this area. The bumped up spots on the back of the opening need to be cut off, and the rest of the bumper tabs will be holding the side grills onto the bumper. After getting all these areas flattened, it's going to be time to fill in some of these areas where there's gaps now. To prep these areas with the gaps, I'll grab some 80 grit sandpaper and rough them up so that the repair material will have better adhesion. You don't need to overthink this step, just get the sandpaper in and around the spots that need to be filled in. I believe I did 5 spots that are here, 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 and here. The plastic repair material that I like to use for these types of builds is Plyo-Grip Plastic Repair number 3, though other plastic repair epoxies can be used in its place. To give myself a little backing to dispense onto, I'll grab some tape and bridge the gaps using that. It's just a quick, easy, and cost-effective solution. Next, just dispense some of the repair material in the area and onto the surrounding tape. It's okay to build this up a little bit, but I would suggest using a spreader to flatten it out and work on getting full coverage. Some of these spots are pretty small, so precise placement and some attention to detail is important during this step. This stuff takes about 30 minutes to cure, and afterward I came back and removed the tape from the front. Now it's time to find out if we need to add any more to the front. At a quick glance, it looks like this was a pretty solid fill. Let's grab the grinder again and start knocking down some of the excess and see what's going on closer to the surface that we want to keep. I'm still keeping the sanding about a 32nd of an inch away from the surface because I'm unsure what I want to do with the finish, and we'll address that soon. In the meantime, I do know that I want to go ahead and sand down the back edge to be flat with the rest of the surrounding area. Also, with the plastic covers that screw on the back, I want to make sure that the edge is as thin as I can get it. We will be adding a little girth to the grill, but it needs to be as minimal as possible. Some of the areas are going to be quite difficult to get the grinder into, and for those areas I wrapped some sandpaper on a spreader and worked over the area by hand. After thinking about different approaches for how to handle the ridged surface on the front, I decided on this set the best thing to do was to sand it all off. I used the dual action sander and an 80 grit disc and started going to town on the top edge that wraps towards the engine bay. Once I got comfortable with that, then I went for the main forward facing side. All of this took quite some time to sand off completely. Once you're at the point of getting into all of the cracks, the best that you can do there is either get in with a spreader or almost any thin but sturdy object. I ended up finding that wrapping some sandpaper around a paint stir stick worked best. This gave me a nice strong flat edge with a handle that allowed me to get into all of those tough areas. And lastly, some of the curved areas were best managed by hand. I then made a pass with some 180 and then 240 grit sandpaper to get it nice and smooth. Here's how mine looks all sanded down. Overall, I like the smooth look, but wow, that was a lot of work to get to this point. If you're looking to flat black this out, I'd suggest going with the Spray Max 1K primer filler and then the matte black trim paint. For these, I ended up doing the same 2-stage gloss black finish that was done on the main upper and lower grills. You can check those videos out from the links in the description. We're finally ready to install the mesh, so let's take a look at the mesh pieces that we have for sale on our website. These are pre-cut and pre-formed specifically for the side grills on the 2024 newer Mustang GT. They're made from aluminum and finished off on a gloss black powder coat. With the grill face down, the mesh can slip on the back of the opening with the bent tabs facing forward. Make sure the mesh is relatively skin tight to the edges and adjust any areas accordingly. After you verify the fitment, grab some cable ties and foam. The foam will go on the painted surface where the ties will be resting to protect the finish. And the ties will be used to temporarily hold the mesh tight against the back of the grill. There are a few areas where the mesh is touching the thin bottom edge that you'll want to avoid using the ties on. We want to aim for putting the ties in the gapped areas on the bottom edge. Also, it's important to get these only tight enough to get a nice firm hold. Don't over tighten the ties to the point where you might be distorting the frame. Keep going around the perimeter of the grill until the mesh piece is fully tied on. Once you think you have full coverage, then cut off the tail ends of the ties and let's check the front for any gaps. This one looks pretty good. I'll give the other piece a look over and then let's get to gluing these up. I'll get the plyo grip out again and use it this time to bond the mesh and frame together. I'm dispensing out a smallish bead of the plyo grip in the areas where the mesh and grill are making contact. This is some fine detail work that you need to be very accurate with. There's a very small margin for error. After some of this epoxy is applied, then I'll come back with a brush and even out the coverage. Make sure not to spill any of this through the front because if you do, it'll be almost impossible to clean up. Work your way around the grill until you have full coverage on all the areas where the mesh is touching the grill frame. Some angles can be tricky to get the nozzle in, and taking a couple different angles of approach might be needed to get the epoxy in just all the right areas. I'll let this harden up for about half an hour and then come back and cut off the ties. The new grill is complete. Let's flip it around and check it out. Oh my goodness, this looks sick. Here's a quick shot at the pair of them together, and I have to say that these were well worth the effort to mod out if you've already done the upper and lower grills. These were made for YouTuber Warlord_S650, and here are some pictures of how they look on his Mustang. I really love this look, and I look forward to seeing everyone else's installs. Now at the end of the video, there are a couple of notes I want to pass on from Warlord_S650 when it comes to the reinstallation of these pieces. As mentioned before, the bumper tab that has the white retaining clip needs to be trimmed off for this grill to fit on. In addition to that, the cover that goes on the back of the mesh will require some small modifications too. A couple of relief points in the corner is needed, as well as some trimming on the lip on the edge. Other than that, this should be plug and play on your Mustang. Well, that's all I have for this video. I hope you liked it. If you can subscribe to the channel, that helps me out quite a bit, and thanks for watching.